What's up, guys? Four-wheeler Doctor back again. Got another little Rubicon here we're working on. This is a 2016 model foot shift Rubicon. Like I said, it's got all sorts of issues. It's smoking. Now it actually won't even crank. So I'm gonna pull the motor off of it. I think I did a top end on this one a while back, and I'm thinking that it's probably got a crankshaft issue. So I'm gonna show you how to pull the motor off on this video, and then just like I do on all of them, I'll show you pulling the motor off, taking the motor apart, putting it back together, and show it running eventually. So what I'm gonna do, I already pulled the plastics off the side. It's pretty self-explanatory. They just pretty much snap off. Have a little nipple holds it here, here, and here. Pull those out, and the things will slide off all in one piece. Naturally took the seat off. So now what I want to do is take both of these floorboards off just to get some more room in here to work on everything, get everything unhooked. Just a bunch of push pins on these. So I'm gonna get those off, and I'll cut the camera back on once I get the plastics removed. Alright guys, got all the plastic off this thing. Next thing you want to do is get this computer, all this other stuff out of here. Pop that computer back, and there's a bolt right down in there, 10mm. Loosen that up, remove it, and then pull this vent line off here for your gas tank. I don't know if I can do that with one hand. There it went. Alright, that comes off. Then your plug there for your fuel pump. It's got a little push pin, a little push here in the side of a little press thing. You press that down and it unclips it. Pull your spark plug wire off like that, and unclip your fuel line from the side here, and this thing will tilt up and get out of the way. It also has some little nipples that are in a little rubber grommet there. You have to kind of lift up on those to get them to pop out, just like that. And then all that will lay over to the side. The only other wire that's remaining that's still kind of holding on is over here on by the spark plug. It's a coolant sensor. It's much like the fuel pump wire, and has a little push pin that you push in. I can't do it with one hand. Actually I can. There you go. So you just fish it up out of here. Right there, right there. Alright, and all that stuff's out of the way. Alright, now the next thing you need to do is get your gas tank out. It's got a Torx head bolt. See if I can show it to you there. Right there. One on each side. Take those out. And then there's also a 10mm bolt right here with a cable on it. I'm not real sure what that cable does, but take that out. And this bolt here actually holds the gas tank down too. Take that out. And so you got four bolts, I'm sorry, that really hold your gas tank in. And then you'll also want to remove this a connector here at your fuel line. Let me get all these bolts out, and then I'll cut the camera back on right before I remove that connector, just to show you how to do it. What's up, guys? Alright, I'm going to show you how to get this fuel line off. We got all the other bolts out of the gas tank. Not that close. So you just take a pair of pliers and squeeze this little yellow connector on each side, and then wiggle this fuel line, and it will slide off of there. Got to get it in both of those little connectors so they don't catch. Alright, are you watching? Alright, just kind of keep your hand over top of it, because it may shoot a little fuel out. And there you go. Videoer's not even watching the video. Give me the camera. My cameraman is not the best in the world. So there you go. Your connector just stays on there, and then there's your the end of your fuel line.
End of your rainbow.
The end of the rainbow. Alright, so now you can pop this push pin out of this side. I'll pop the one out of the other side too, just to make it a little easier to get these bolts out. And you can just lift up on this gas tank and it'll come out of here. Feels like it's about full of fuel, so I'm going to have to do it with two hands. But let me get that off there and I'll cut the camera back on. Alright, got the gas tank out of here. Now we got this little cover. This is supposed to be like a white plastic, but this one here is pretty dirty. So it's got a push pin here you have to take out and one here you have to take out. So pull both of those out and then slide back on it to get it out of these little clips. There's 3 clips on that right side. Slide it back and that plastic piece will come out of there. So let me get these push pins out and I'll slide this out and then we'll show you what we got to do next. Alright guys, I also got the oil draining out of this thing. We'll do a few more things up here on the top, then we're going to jump down over on that right side and drain the coolant out. So while we're still up here, I'm going to take both of these push pins out of these air box and loosen this clamp up right here where the intake bolts to the motor, and that'll give us a little bit of movement in our throttle body and an air box to let us move that back. So we can get it to slide out. So let me do that, and I'm probably going to also go ahead and take these 12 millimeters out of the exhaust manifold and maybe slip that exhaust off of there. So let me get that loosened up and I'll figure out what I'm going to do with the exhaust. Guys, one other thing before I go down back over here onto the right side, I'm going to go ahead and take these two 12 millimeter bolts out of this top motor mount just while I'm over here. So go ahead and pull those out. Alright guys, got the exhaust unbolted, the top motor mount unbolted. Now we're going to try to drain some coolant out of this thing. It's this bottom bolt right here on the cover of the water pump that you need to take out. It's got a little O-ring or a washer on it. Back that thing out. I like to use a little bendy straw here and jug to catch it. And so back this out. It may leak a little bit of coolant out. It may leak it all out, but most of the time you have to go up and pull the radiator cap off to relieve the pressure, and it'll really come out then. So I'm not going to be able to hold the camera and do this, so I'll just really usually uneventful. I'll usually make a mess is usually what happens, but I'm going to try not to do that this time. So let me get this bolt out, drain some coolant out, and I'll cut the camera back on with the next step. Alright guys, I've got the coolant drained out of the thing, the oil drained out. I've got the exhaust bolts loose up here. Next thing you do to get this exhaust out is to pop this little clip off here that holds your oxygen sensor, and this one's not even plugged up. So what you want to do is just take this whole exhaust and slide it forward, and it'll come off of these little there's a little grommet right there on the top and on the bottom. Just slide it all forward, and then you can kind of twist it and pull it all out of there and not really have to take, well, you can't take the exhaust apart because it's all one piece, but not really have to take anything else off of it. So let me get that slipped out of there, and then I'm going to probably jump to the other side and take the electrical connectors off over there. I don't know if I said it or not, but you have to take this top radiator hose off as well as the bottom one. The bottom one's still on there. I'm going to slide it off of there and slide this boot back here on the intake at the throttle body to get it to slide back. I'll have to work with that a little bit, but slide that off there, and then sliding your differential forward will be the last thing you have to do aside from getting those last few electrical connectors off. So let me pull those off real quick. I'll cut the camera back on when I get over there and show you what you got unhooked. Alright guys, the connectors you got to take off over here is this one here. You need to unclip it from the frame. It was already unclipped, but if you don't unclip it from the frame, the connector will not come apart. It's got a little kind of a locking mechanism in it there. So unclip that one. You have to fish around, go all the way back to the rectifier to get this other wire. Let's see if I can do it real quick here. Battery's about to go dead on my camera. Pull the cover up, and then the wire you're looking for is this one here. It's a gray one, got a little clip on the rectifier. So push that clip down and wiggle it up. I can't get it out. Just pull this connector apart, or this clip here apart, and pull your wire on out. So those two. You've got to get this connector loose. The all these are pretty tough to do with one hand. And then there's one more connector. This is about the hardest one to get to. It's right back in here. You can kind of see it wiggle around right there. This is the wire that's connected to it. It's the toughest one to get out. So you got to get it unhooked. And then you still got a remaining a ground wire here, your starter wire, and then a ground wire on the starter. I usually wait till last to unhook those. Usually after I get the thing unbolted and slid it forward, just gives you a little bit more room to get in there. There's also a reverse cable that you have to unbolt to down on the bottom. There again, it's easier once you slide it forward. So let me get all these electrical connectors loose that I can, and then I'm going to jump to the front diff and show you what to unbolt out of it to slide all that forward. Alright guys, now we need to get this diff slid forward so we can get that front drive shaft out of there. What you do is take these two, there's one on this side and one on the other side, 12mm bolts out, and there's a 14mm bolt that goes through here. And then the last bolt you have to pull out on these is this bolt. See if I can point to it here. Right in here. It's right there. 14mm, and then you need to get that's kind of the toughest part. You need to get a wrench on the other side, because there's a nut over there. On the older bikes it just has a threaded in bung that it goes into, but these here you have to hold that nut, and that can get a little aggravating. But I usually just put it on a impact with a 6" extension. It'll get in there, and the same thing I use to loosen this one up too. So easiest thing on those 12mm is a air ratchet. You can stick it in about like this here, and catch it, flip it around, do it on the other side, and it'll pull those off real easy. So let me get those off real quick, and then I'll show you sliding it forward, and we'll get that drive shaft out. Alright guys, got the all the bolts out of the diff now. It should slide forward, and we can get this drive shaft off. Usually what you try to do is kind of pull forward on the diff here a little bit with a crowbar, lift up on it some to get it out of the little slot it's in, like that, and then pry it forward again. There it goes. And it will usually slide forward on you a little bit. And then you got to get back here to where the shaft goes into the motor. Just don't have much of a lip to catch on. There it is. Sorry about that. Got a good shot of my hand. So just pry that forward and pull the shaft out. Just like that. Well, kind of just like that. It's stuck on the boot here, but you get the idea. So slide that boot off the diff. There it is. Alright, get the shaft out. Alright, next we're going to loosen these motor mount bolts. There's only two of those. One on this side, one on the other. They're 14mm. I'm going to get them loose. Make sure you hang on to those sleeves and those little washer looking things here. I'll go ahead and pull them off, because sometimes you'll lose them. So let me go ahead and get them pulled off, and I'll cut the camera back on once I get them off. Alright guys, I got the motor mounts out of here. Got the intake loose up here. Sliding the motor forward. I'm seeing if I can get this shaft off. It looks like it's come apart back there at the diff, which is fine, but you need to get it off here at the joint too. Well, my main objective here now is to just slide this motor forward so that I can get this starter wire off, this ground wire off here, and then there's also a ground on this one starter bolt. Usually just take a 10mm 1/4 inch drive and break these loose. Go ahead and pull them off, and the only remaining thing will be that joint for one thing, which is about to come off, and then the last thing will be that reverse cable. I'll slide the motor up out of the motor mounts to get to it, because it's kind of under the motor, a little tough to get to. So I'll cut the camera back on once I get all these things unhooked, and show you how I do the reverse cable. Alright guys, you can see I got the motor kind of cocked up in here. It's actually up out of the motor mounts, and that'll allow you to get to the where this reverse cable goes. There's one little lever under there that's got a 10mm nut on it, a bolt. Take that out and the little arm will slide off, and then you can pull this cable out. And that's should be the only other remaining item we got left on here. So once I get that pulled out, and I can just slide it out the other side. I'll cut the camera back on in a sec when I get ready to do that. Alright guys, that's what that little reverse lever looks like, a little bolt that comes out of it. So that's the last thing we have to take off. So let me get the camera set up on the stand, and I'm going to try to pull this thing out of here and show you guys the action. Alright, we're going to pull this motor out real quick. What you want to do is just rock the thing up from the bottom and get it to slide out here. We'll get it out onto this floorboard.
Is that them?
Pick it up, twist it out. Just like that. So that's it. Alright guys, so y'all stay tuned. I'm going to have a disassembly video on this thing for too long. And check out my other videos, like, subscribe. Have a good night.